Okay. Oh, it's it is recording. I'll clip that bit. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I'm Louise Eddington with the Cosmic Owl with Cosmic Owl Astrology, a wisdom weaver. And today I have with me a longtime Facebook friend, Andrew Brewer, who is a psychic, and he has been or is very well known as a psychic, and he talks a lot about the things I talk about, and we tend to agree with the trajectory of where it's going. But I thought, since, this is the first time I've had Andrew here on this channel, I'd love to hear from you a little bit about, who you are and what you do now, and you as a psychic, really. Tell us about you, Andrew.
Well, thank you. I tend to work on collective emotions. So the way that I make predictions is basically I try to feel what's going on. I mean, I predicted the housing crisis in 2008 because I thought people felt sad about their houses. I predicted COVID and the economic stuff because I felt people felt really stressed. So there's a collective energy to it. I was a psychic kind of by accident when I was in my 20s and 30s, and I was on TV in my 30s, and then I stopped for about 15 years and then came back to it in my early 50s. Um, I mean, I was one of the probably early voices saying that Trump would be kind of what he is, I think. And I also was one of the early voices against QAnon, because when QAnon first came out, there was this push that this was like some real insight. And I was trying to say the ways in which they're processing information doesn't make sense to me. And so, like toxic positivity and all the things that we may talk about more now, initially, when I was talking about it, that didn't go over so well. But I was stuck to my guns, and here we are. As far as Trump, and I just say this real quickly, I have consistently said that he would face issues in terms of past crimes or financial improprieties, that he would lose, that I said that he would contest the election in 2020, lose and contest it, and said that he would be gone before January 20th. I also said the certification would be delayed one day. So so basically all I do, and I use astrology too. I predicted Trump would win in 2016
I
based on
I did too.
comparing him and Hillary,
Uh-huh.
comparing his chart and Hillary's chart to the 1776 chart. And that's why I thought that he would win then.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's kind of high level. I've done it for a long time. Um, and, here I am. So, hi.
Aye. Well, I think a lot of people are still, a little bit frightened of, what this far right movement has brought us. But, I've been consistently saying, don't worry, it's not, it's going to turn around, and you've constantly been consistently been saying that too. So I thought we'd talk a little bit about this really rapid timeline shift with Biden stepping down and
Yes,
Kamala
for sure.
and and now Waltz being the VP, which I'm ecstatic about, to be honest. But
Me too.
that happened on a Capricorn full moon. It feels like it just broke everything open, right? So and what we have been feeling is happening. So you tell me what you see. I'd love to hear your.
I said when I first became a professional psychic, it was 1987. And in 1987, I said that the 1930s, as in the Hitler 1930s, would return, and it would return within the United States. And there would be a neo Nazi in the United States in my lifetime. And the reason I said that simplistically was I believed that, and I still believe this, that people reincarnate, and that people that were in Germany, basically in 1933, would be here this round, and that they would replicate that and try to reproduce that. I predicted a rise in anti-Semitism 2009, 10, and I kept talking about there's going to be this far right thing that's going to happen. And no one believed me then. And now I'm saying that this movement that everyone is so worried about is going away. People are tired of it. And I think that the energy that we've seen is dissipating. And the reason for that within the United States, and I think collectively within, certainly within the EU, is that people want a happy life. They want peace and harmony. They want to get along. They want to go to parties. They want to have picnics. They want to be able to play with their children. They do not want to be in this contentious, slam bam thing all the time. And I think that division type of energy, which is strategic for them because it's designed to make you not really aware of what's behind the scenes. I think people are too smart for that at this point. And I think that basically their attempt to push that has failed. And I think the coming years are going to show that quite dramatically. So people don't want that. And maybe there was a novelty to it in 2016 and 17 when people didn't really fully embrace what was happening. But I think they figured it out now. And the people who are so gung-ho supportive of that ideology, which in my opinion is racist at its core, I just think there's too many good, like happy people. And I do think that energy is dissipating. People ask me all the time, oh, there's election deniers or this or that. And so what I say to them every time is, if Trump was as powerful as people fear, he would still be president. If he was as powerful as people think he is, then when he was in much better position, before his tactics became obvious, when he was actually still in the White House, it would have worked then, but it failed then. It will fail even more dramatically now. And people are not going to go to jail on a mass level to support Trump. That's just not going to happen. So I'm super optimistic. I think happy things are coming. And I have been kind of notorious for saying things nobody wants to hear. Yeah. But now, I think it's really good. So
I've been a little bit that way. I think I'm a little bit, or I used to be a little bit less blunt than I am now, but now I am more like you, kind of inspired by people like you. But in 2016, I knew Trump would win too. I was just like, yeah, he's gonna win. And, we'll be okay, we'll get through it. And we're okay. Yes, it was awful. And, the insurrection was awful. But I get a lot of questions about, all these things about, oh, the fake electors, and they're not going to certify elections and things. I'd love your kind of
well,
thought.
it's just what I said before, and I've written about this a lot. If Trump was powerful enough to accomplish that now, he would have done it then. Yeah. His ability to do that is less than it was in 2020. The probability of that being successful is far less than it was in 2020. There was also some potential element of doubt that might have existed in people's minds in 2020, which I do not believe exists at this point. Also, Trump's power base has eroded, in my opinion, quite dramatically. His support network has also eroded, to me, quite dramatically. So when people say, oh, there's going to be a civil war, I'm just going to, dude, chill. Nothing's going to happen. I just do not see anything happening. And I have been kind of an outlier all along, and would say these things about Trump and his power fading and him being held accountable and going to trial. And the first time I saw Tish James' picture, the very first time I saw her photo, I said, this is the hammer to Trump's nail. This is what starts his downfall. And so there's cases in New York, and the case with the documents, and the case in Georgia. All those things that eventually come to pass. I persist in my belief that Trump will end up being convicted, and I believe that he will go to prison. I do think that. I also think that the presidential immunity ruling from the Supreme Court and the overturn of Roe v. Wade, I think that those will be reversed. And I've said for a long time that I believe Clarence Thomas specifically would be investigated for past financial crimes, and it looks like we're getting closer to that too. Yes. So it's a long-winded way of saying I think things are on the upswing, because I think for Trump and the Project 2025 people in that group, the Christian nationalist people, I think they're on the way down. So that's my speech.
What about the Musks and the Peter Thiels and people like that? Where do they come into all this?
Well, I mean, when you look at VC money, venture capital money, and in the technosphere, they're not going to go anywhere. I
Mm,
mean, they are not just going to magically disappear.
mm,
Um, so that world and their mindset will is pervasive. It will continue, but it's one thing to create. I mean, there's a certain construct, a cognitive construct that's going to happen for people because of the technology. So if someone's designing that technology, whether it be AI or PayPal or whatever else, then yes, they have an influence on the ways people interact with one another and the ways that they think. But
mm,
as far as dissemination of that into the masses, to make it so that there's basically this techno god and then the little people, I
mm.
just don't see that happening.
No, me neither.
Um, so the Peter Thiels and all those people, the really high end, ultra libertarian, that group, they're still in power to the extent that they're in power.
Hmm.
But again, that doesn't mean that there's a lot of other people who aren't there. And I think that the weight of that group is stronger than whatever push they may have. I mean, they've been pushing, but I still think that it fails. That's my take. So I'm still optimistic. I'm in a happy space.
I am too, but I just kind of wanted to address people's concerns. And I kind of see this, and I think you do too, kind of rippling out globally. Putin's an authoritarian, Orban, Netanyahu, all those people. I kind of really see them all kind of in their last blast, if you like. I'd kind of like
Yeah,
their,
so I agree with that.
yeah. Oh, good, 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 good.
I do agree with that. I've said that about Putin, and I felt that the war with right before we went to war with Ukraine, or they went, when Russia invaded Ukraine, and people were saying that they're just going to run right over them. I said, I don't think so. I think Ukraine is going to surprise people, and it's not going to be nearly as easy, and that Russia is going to have a significant problem, and that will, in my opinion, cause internal problems in terms of Putin's power base within Russia. So I think that the things that have happened, economic sanctions, the expansion of NATO, I think that those things are not to Putin's advantage nor Orban's advantage. I'm hopeful that there's some sort of reasonable resolution for what's happening with Palestine and Israel. I do think that that will happen, although, um, and no matter, I don't know what's happened with you, Louise, but when people would go, every time something would happen, there was, we're going to go to war and just go chill.
I
The
know.
energy, the collective energy, does not support that. So the way that I look at things is I try to understand people within the space in which they inhabit. So the space around them exerts a force on them. So if there's not, so people like the time that when Trump was shot in Pennsylvania a few weeks back,
Mm,
and people were, oh, this is like, I go, this doesn't change anything. It does not change anything. Fundamentally, the path that we're on is not modified
mm.
by this incident in Pennsylvania. So uh, if there's not a collective energy that supports a certain long term trend,
Mhm.
then I don't see it ever getting very far. It can make a noise, but that noise is temporary. But the pushback against MAGA and Trump and this mode of thinking, the you know push against women, is very definitely
Oh,
a push against women's rights and women's autonomy. I think that that should fail and it will fail.
yeah,
I'm very optimistic long term.
yeah. So you're because you're an astrologer as well, you kind of follow those trends. And as an astrologer, I'm more the astrologer with the very intuitive side. You're kind of the psychic with the astrology, if you like. I think we're kind
Right.
of a bit,
We kind of
yeah.
hit midstream there somewhere, which is
Yeah.
good, which is the
Oh, it
perfect
is.
way it should be.
But in astrology world, we hear a lot of fear being promoted, in my opinion. about when Uranus moves into Gemini next year, because last time Uranus moved into Gemini, there was wars. But I don't think we can look at any one planet. I think we have to kind of, this is where I think astrology really has to, or astrologers generally, have to not only look at the dates and the cycles, but also tune into it intuitively and say, what does this feel like? I also do not feel war when I look at Uranus in Gemini this time. So,
So I don't look at any one planet in isolation.
oh,
Like someone says that they're Libra, I mean, good. Where's your, it doesn't, you have to look at the way I look at astrology is you have all these planetary energies. The way I've always described it is like they're at a cocktail party where they're working on a project together. So Mars has a certain kind of vibe. Jupiter has a certain kind of vibe. I have Mars in Aries, so that's a certain way it, manifests. But it's tempered by all these other things. So the last time that Uranus was in Gemini, so that's what, probably 84 years ago or so. Pluto was in a different place. Saturn was probably in a different place. Everything's not in the same place. And it also has to look at the collective energies. So, how Uranus might have impacted the world in the 13th century is going to be dramatically different than how it would impact the world in the 21st century. So I think you have to look at how all these variables work. So for me, and I'm an astrologer. I taught classes in astrology and written things about astrology for years. Um, I don't. I think that's too simplistic.
yeah.
And so Uranus and Gemini, maybe that's a revolution in the way in which we communicate. Maybe that means there's all sorts of new technology,
Well,
cell
I,
phones that are earrings or whatever.
I'm wondering if it'll even perhaps bring some form of clean energy, clean fuel that we've been searching for a long time. You know,
For
some
sure. Because I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, no, but I'm just agreeing with you. To be honest, as an astrologer, it drives me nuts, the fear being promoted by fellow astrologers sometimes, and I'm ready to speak out and go, stop it, look at the bigger
Well, I've already spoken out and said
yeah,
stop it for a lot.
yeah.
Um, and I've been sort of the front person for a lot of that.
Mm,
Um, I have probably been to some degree, but I mean, when you write books that have titles like "Karmic Outlaw" and "Suck My Root Chakra," you know that you're kind of going against the grain.
yeah.
Um, I want to talk about the astrology for a second. When I looked at a high level between Kamala's chart and Trump's chart,
Mm,
I thought that Kamala had a very distinctive advantage
mhm.
over Trump. When I looked at Trump compared to Hillary, there were all sorts of angles that they had
Yeah.
together. Uh, I mean, they had a lot of things, inner aspects together that were, the orbs were super tight. But I felt that Trump, in some sense, like his stuff together seemed like it weighed more than hers together. But when I look at, and this is a very simplistic way to put it, but
Yeah.
when I look at Kamala compared to Trump, I just go, oh, dog, she's bringing it to you and you have nothing in return.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's how I look at them.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
and I haven't looked at Wall's chart, but he was my pick. I didn't know if he would be VP, but the first time I saw him, I thought this is the guy that they should pick.
Yeah.
Fine.
I looked at his chart without a time. I don't even know if there's a time out there, but I looked at it with hers, and both he and Pete, Mayor Pete, had great connections. So I kind of think Pete will just have a really high role in the administration. So it was between those two for me. So yeah, I agreed with you. But I also, because we're going in this, for the want of a better word, progressive direction. But I think it's just I think as well we've got to drop some of these labels and stop some of this left versus right. Because you're right. I think people generally just want a decent life.
They just want harmony. They just want, like, I'm pretty much a moderate Democrat, right? and I end up being kind of a loud voice for left leaning policies.
Mm,
And used to do a lot of radio shows about politics too. But I mean, really, I'm pretty ideologically kind of like center left.
mhm,
And I think that people want to find a common ground. They want to, find something that people can kind of split the difference. One of the things that I see is that this contentious is all or nothing. I
mhm,
mean, to me, that's not a really workable action plan to try to get things done. It's either my way or nothing. And if you look at what happens with the United States Congress, I mean, a lot of the Republicans are just there as arsonists, basically, to try to tear it down. I
mhm.
mean, tactically, so much of what's happening, I think, replicates tactically what we saw with the National Socialists, the Nazis in the 30s, and the fascists in Italy in the 30s. I think a lot of their strategies have similar foundational elements.
Mhm.
But I, but this is kind of like the Uranus and Gemini thing. The United States is not the same
No.
conglomeration of energies that we saw in Germany. There's also a different economic basis. A lot of Germany was a result of the Great Depression in 1929. I mean, that allowed Hitler to kind of get started, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And the collapse of their currency and all of that kind of stuff.
For sure. Weimar, 23, yeah.
Yeah, and we just don't have that now. Like everybody panicked yesterday because the stock market went down as over 1,000, but it's back up again today.
Yeah, there are a lot of factors that could play into that. I wasn't worried about that. I think it'll kind of even out.
Yeah,
There could be a sell off of one particular thing. Also, what's going on with Israel and Iran could scare people a little bit.
yeah.
Uh, there could just be um, there's a lot of factors. If it stayed that way, if it went down 1,000 points a day for a couple of weeks, then you'd freak.
Ex
But little correction here and there. Plus, it's been going up and up and up and up too. So at some point, you would think it has to
yeah.
make an adjustment.
So you mentioned it, the Iran and Israel thing. What's your feeling about that? I don't see much coming from that either.
I don't think it gets. I don't think it does much.
Mm.
Uh, I think it's providing some tension,
Oh,
but I don't think it does much. Like when Trump was president, and everyone like we're going to war with Syria or North Korea, and I'm like, just relax, relax. I don't think that this will escalate now.
mm,
I think this is more tension filled than a lot of the things in the past.
mhm.
And I also think that the United States has less direct influence in it than some of these other things in the past. So therefore, there's a layer of kind of more out of control.
Yeah,
But even with that, I would be very surprised if anything escalated in a dramatic fashion. I also think that my vision of happy times ahead, I persist in that. I really do think that. And I'm holding to that, not just because I'm a Pollyanist, but because I think that the collective energy is most suggestive of that to me.
it is to me. I work very much like you. Yes, I am primarily an astrologer, but I tune into the collective, but I also pay attention
For
to
sure.
what's happening when I go out in the world, just amongst local people. And, as well as the news and the world things. And I just feel this difference. The world feels different now than it did in 2016, for example. So, to my mind, it's like,
How many yards do you see Trump stickers in?
not as
That's
many.
that's not
I,
as many as there were before, right?
no, not as many at all. Yeah, and I've posted about that on Facebook. And I always get the person going, "Oh, there's loads where I am," and I'm going, "But are there as many as there were 4 years ago or whenever?" There aren't. It's
There
just
aren't.
changing. Yeah, and people,
So there are subtle things you can look at, right? I mean, that's one. I mean, it's simplistic, but your eyeballs tell you things.
Hmm.
And if all your neighbors, 75% of them had gigantic Trump signs, and now it's like 10%, that's important. Because if his power was similar, then the push to get him back should have made the number of signs in the front yards go up.
Yeah. Yeah.
If they really felt that they were aggrieved and they had to make it right, and I can't live with a Democrat or whatever, and they really felt that Trump was the solution, then that would be, in my mind, it would be greater. But instead, it's less.
Yeah.
So to me, that suggests that it's not as fashionable as it used to be, because I think the pushback, just more and more people, everyday people going, dude, I mean, look at what's going on here. Can you believe this? Um, so that's why I still persist
Hmm.
in my belief that things get better. And so, like, I've written a lot about love and light kind of selling people out,
Mm.
which
Oh,
always goes over well when I bring this up. But
oh,
I think that
go
that's
for
true.
it. Go for it. I agree with you.
So, so I've written a lot about this and talked a lot about this. So when you look at, um, I don't create my reality. My reality is bigger than me. I don't have enough information or enough power to create my reality. So when people would say, like, I was a dark energy because I would point out problems, go, this is an issue. We should really kind of address this. We should really talk about this. Oh, I don't allow that into my thinking. Well, it doesn't matter if you allow it in your thinking or not. If you don't, it's going to be in the front yard in 3 years.
Still there.
So maybe you should think about it and fix it.
Yeah.
So, of course, this didn't go over well when I first said it. So I think that this mindset of discounting reality, of being reality that you create, this conspiratorial thinking that we have some special insider info that no one else has allowed other people to take advantage of that, distort it, and push it even further. And that's to some degree why we're in the hot mess we're in right now. So I think that, you know, the law of attraction. Do you want me to go down this path? I'll shut up. But if you want me, I'll go down here. I'm
Please,
asking you.
please, I
All
believe
right.
the law of attraction, but not how it's
So
been,
do I, up to a point.
not how it's been taught.
If 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 my self-esteem really sees me as not having any worth, let's just say that I've gained weight because I just had a hip replacement. So I look at myself, to gain weight, but that's just, short term and it'll go away. But if I had a weight issue and I really felt that I did not deserve to change, and lots of times that's a second chakra issue. We can get into that too if you want. If I put a thing in the refrigerator that says I'm getting thinner every day and I don't believe it, I'm not affirming anything. I'm challenging my subconscious to prove I'm wrong.
Yeah.
If there is not something within you that can align with that thought, it doesn't matter, because then you're in a contravention with your own self. You're basically at war with yourself. So there has to be an alignment. It should be a natural progression. So the idea that you can magically jump from one point to another without actually creating those conditions within yourself and moving towards it, that's not going to work. But that involves a certain amount of self-reflection and a certain amount of effort. And nobody wants effort and self-reflection. They just want to have the catalog of the universe and have Ferraris that they manifest because they think of it. What that did was, if you take it a little bit further, it put in this notion that if I couldn't manifest a bunch of Ferraris, then there was something wrong with my thinking, right? So
Yeah.
it became a form of elitism.
Yeah.
And so then it became an us versus them. Well, us versus them is a polarization we have right now politically. So there's not a great deal of difference that I see energetically, emotionally, because that's how I read things, the emotional, flavor of what's there, between this, I'm a light being and I've manifested, and I'm a special person and I'm part of the elect or whatever.
Yeah.
Though it's a form of self-constructed, elitism that's not really real. And so what happens is you find that people who go down this path start coming up with even crazier,
Yeah.
uh, you know, the earth is flat, JFK Jr. faked his death, whatever. They come up with crazier notions because it supports this mode of thinking. So you get into some sort of cognitive bias hell.
Yeah.
So I do think that Love and Light Land has sold out the very spiritual people who's trying to get somewhere because they put this umbrella over top of everything. And
Mm.
I've been determined to go, no, that's not how it rolls.
And I have to
So
tell you,
that's my very short speech.
I have to tell you, listeners, Andrew comes up with some wonderful phrases to describe these Love and Lightland people because he's
Thank you.
very good with the words. And I
Thank
completely
you.
agree with you on that too. Because, part of, I'm kind of probably in terms of tuning into all this a few years behind you in terms of the way I've been working with it. But, I came through the Love and Lightland and I
So do I.
The secret and all of that kind of stuff. And it's so shallow. It's just so one of my favorite books on, I can't find it right now, on um Law of Attraction is actually Mind Magic by Doty, who is actually a neurologist. So he understands how the brain works and he explains the science and he explains how deep you have to go to be able to respond to the outside world and heal yourself from the inside. And then you can start to attract things you desire. But it's not just like going, I want a red bike, and it's there the next morning. No way. And it's not about ignoring the shadow, it's about dealing with all of that as well. I agree so much with you.
Absolutely. Because if you're not in alignment,
Yeah.
I've been pretty good at making predictions
Mm.
over the years, excuse me. Not infallible. I don't claim to be all knowing. My Louise, my very favorite thing ever, ever in social media is this. I gotta tell you the story. You'll appreciate it. So when there was always psychics that they're 98% accurate, I go, there's nobody's 98% accurate. So just relax. Well, this woman said on my Facebook, this is my very favorite ever thing on social media in my entire life. And I've seen some stuff on social media. She said, well, if it was just me, then of course I can make a mistake. But I connect with spirit, and spirit is always 100% accurate. So therefore, I am 100% accurate. And I thought, well, that explains it. I'm not connecting with spirit. So that's why it's just me trying to figure things out. But if I had a direct pipeline, there's no translation issues, no encryption code, no anything. You are in sync with spirit 24 hours a day. You are never wrong. This is my very favorite crazy thing I've ever seen in Love and Light Land. And as somebody who's on TV and have been all over, I've seen some crazy things in Love and Light Land. So, yeah,
Yeah.
you have to have an energetic alignment. This is like with synastry and astrology, right? There has to be a commonality. And I think it's based on inner aspects. And I think the orbs have to be tight, but you can see how those people go together. So if there's not something to compare it to, just like with, Uranus moving into Gemini,
Yeah.
it has to impact something. It just doesn't exist on its own. There's an interrelationship here. And, um,
With
and
something
so for the secret and law of attraction, it has to be within you first.
it does. And with something like spirit, you know, spirit isn't something separate anyway. We
No,
it's we're in this quantum realm for want of a better expression. We are both wave and particle and everything is wave and particle and it's all connected and tangled up and we're bouncing off those other things and they're bouncing off us. And that includes
for
spirit,
sure.
whatever you want to call spirit. It's about time we really shifted to understand that. And do you know one of my favorite things with the Love and Light Land is the ones that come on when we speak truth, like you speak truth and I speak truth, and somebody comes on and goes, check your ego. I love that.
I used to get that a lot. I don't get that so much
I
anymore,
don't get it
but
I got it the other day, so it reminded me.
I mean, I didn't want to go into this anti-QAnon, anti-Trump space. When I first did it, people would email me and go, "Oh, I just love what you're saying. Please keep saying it." But I'm afraid to like it or comment. I'm like, well, you don't think it's kind of an issue for me because I'm the one saying it. I mean, I would get death threats like in the emails and the Q people, they kind of wanted to recruit me. I mean, they wanted to recruit me because I was kind of a controversial kind of dude in some sense. And but I would just go, no, this doesn't make sense. This and a lot of the basic jumping off points I agreed with. And I'd said some of the like the front door, step one things that QAnon ran with, I had said similar things. But the way that they distorted it and where they ended up, I'm like, this is no, that can't be.
Yeah,
Can't be.
I think I was a Bernie Sanders delegate in 2016 and went to Philly. So yeah, I was drawn in at that start of that QAnon thing, and you're right. Some of the
Mhm.
things they said at first, were correct, but
For sure.
it was consciously fed that way. And I saw so many fellow so-called Bernie bros, but most of them were pretty much anarchists, really go into that rabbit hole. And gradually, one by one, I would tell them, I would be like, you're wrong, And they just one by one sunk into it. I wonder where they are now because I decided I didn't want them in my circle, shall we say. But yeah, it was just it again, it was propaganda, mind fucking, whatever you want to call it. It was psyops, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And what all that the Trump lot kind of say, would you agree? That thing of every accusation is a confession. Everything they say about the
Yes, for sure. I mean, the
yeah,
very things that they point at as being problematic, I mean, they're the ones that are the most guilty of it.
yeah.
And there is, I don't know the German word, Weltanschauung or something like that, but it means worldview warfare.
Mm,
And there is really um, what I believe is happening on a not even on a simplistic level is like worldview warfare.
yeah.
The idea of making cognitive associations. So yes, we have like when people would first send me these Q videos, I'd watch first 5 minutes, go, yeah, dog, yeah, yeah. Then I go, what the
What?
hell? What?
Yeah, yeah.
So at first I would be like, well, yeah, that's totally. And then I'd be like, well, how do you get from that to that to that? So it was being, this is my take on it, that it was being manipulated and going back to Love and Light land, the Love and Light people were kind of being manipulated too and
Mm,
may not have understood the extent to which they were being played.
mm,
And so not everyone went into it maliciously. I'm sure a lot of people believed that what they were saying. I'm sure a lot of people saw some results. And again, if there was some element within you that was completely in alignment with what you were trying to do, then you had already done the work. And so for you, you're just manifesting something that is really compatible with you. But for someone else who has not gotten that kind of core uh, integration within them, then this is you're just lying to them and just making them crazy for no reason. But I think it was distorted on purpose.
mhm.
And I also think this is where I really go down a rabbit hole that it became kind of a game to see just how far people would go down the crazy hole. And
And they
but
found that
people
by
are pushing back against that
yeah, I think they are pushing back. I think they're realizing they've kind of been had. And I agree, an awful lot of people did not get drawn in. It's kind of like how cults work, really, isn't it?
for
They were
sure,
they were drawn in and they didn't intend any harm. They really thought they were kind of doing the right thing and all of
for
that.
sure.
Yeah. And so I hope they kind of come back out of it healthily and are able to heal themselves, extricate themselves, whatever you want to call it, and kind of just come back to this more. Not everybody is out to get you, There's a lot wrong with all political systems. I've lived in several countries. Clearly, I'm from the UK. I've lived in Canada, Australia, and and there is a lot to criticize in systems, but you know, the the Dems as they are now are nothing. That two sides of the two wings of the same bird or whatever comment you get. I'm like, what? No, 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 no.
I don't see that. I mean, to some degree, there's a corporatocracy. You could
Oh,
say that corporations have an undue influence, and yes, they kind of dictate things up to a point. However, if they really their influence only goes so far. So people have to look at collective action. They have to look at the ways in which they spend money, the ways in which they interact with each other, what they accept as reasonable behavior. There is an individual input here, and that if there's enough individual people acting and saying much the same way, that has an impact, no matter what the dominant sort of economic force might wish. Again, going back to the Peter Thiels of the world.
hmm.
Um, I mean, that's why you have Vance,
Yeah.
um, who I knew from jump would not blend with Trump.
Oh, me too. I looked at his chart with Trump's chart and instantly was like, whoa.
Instantly, this is not a happy combination.
I mean,
Um,
if I were a predictive astrologer, I predict that, over time, like you said, the Supreme Court, all those re de decisions will be reversed. I actually think Citizens United will probably be reversed at
so
some.
do I. I've already predicted that Citizens United would at some point be overturned, and that a lot of this push. I mean, you could say this started in the '90s.
Mm,
I mean, with the overturning of Glass-Steagall, and then whatever happened with Bush Jr., Bush 2. Uh, there's a lot of things how to incrementally pushed us away from what was normal,
yeah.
25 years ago.
And
But
kind
I think that
of what you
moves back more.
Yeah, I think so. I think the US as a whole is going to move back more towards the intention of when it was founded as a United States. But
For sure. I do too.
I think there also might be some constitutional amendments to, include others other than just men.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, they were in a different time, so, they intended something and yeah, also, it's going to be interesting because as an astrologer, and I've never done a writing or a video on it yet, but I've looked at the charts of the first slaves landing in Jamestown and then Juneteenth chart and the US chart, all three together. There's something going to come to a head about all of that. And it
Oh,
might,
that's interesting.
yeah, because it's embedded in the US chart, those connections. And I kind of hope, I kind of wonder if there'll kind of be a different holiday for a new United States or something at some point. We'll see.
I mean, I'm very optimistic. I think there has to be. I mean, people can stay stuck,
Mm,
or they can deal as best they can with their trauma. The United States has a lot of trauma.
yeah.
They have a lot of skeletons in the closet.
Mhm.
I used to, and I still do, of course, write about going through depression or whatever things I go through. And people say, dude, you can't say that. I go, well, it's too late now. You just read it. So I guess it's, out of that. You can't let on that you're not all knowing. Well, I'm not all knowing. I'm a human. I'm trying to figure it out, as just like everybody else. But I think that there's this fear of admitting that you don't know everything. Like,
Yeah,
I'm a pretty well known guy, what I do.
yeah.
Uh, but I don't ever claim that I know everything. And I try to make it pretty obvious that I'm still trying to figure it out the best I can. And I have my days, and
Mm,
my emotions impact what I do. And I also am not embarrassed to say a lot of what I do is intellectual. My economic predictions were in part just economic analysis because I was good at it and I could sort of put two and two together, which always annoyed people. Oh, I thought you were a psychic. Well, I am a psychic, kind of, but my intuition can also work with my intellectual abilities. They don't have to cancel each other out. Um, People are trying to find peace within themselves. And this pounding that it's all bad, it's going to fall into the earth, the earth is going to fall into the ocean or whatever.
Yeah.
Although there's some climate challenges, but
Yeah.
this notion that the world's like the United States is this terrible place, that is just simply not true. The
Yeah.
United States is, got some issues,
Oh,
but it's not the worst place on earth either. And there's a lot of good that can still come out of it. I'm super optimistic, and
I
Trump will lose, and Trump will end up in prison. That is my prediction. I stand by it
and I'm also
for
optimistic
sure.
that we'll adapt to climate change. Somebody on the right this week said you can't reverse the climate, you can't change the climate. I was like, no, but we can
You
adapt.
can change the impact.
We can
You
adapt.
can you can slow it down.
Yes.
One of the things I talk right. I mean, you can do things that make it the glaciers not melt quite as fast,
Mhm,
uh, where the coral reefs don't completely disintegrate over the weekend.
mhm.
Um, one of the things I talked about 15 years ago was I said that natural disasters would get more plentiful and would be more intense.
Mhm.
And one of the serious impacts it would have would be on insurance.
Yeah.
This went over, like I said, that aliens ate your child,
Mhm.
but it has had an impact on insurance,
As
homeowners insurance, things like that. And so when you look at relationships, right? Predictions are about relationships.
mm,
So if you see certain kind of factors and they have a potential impact and these other things then are impacted, where does that go? You follow the bouncing ball. That
mm,
has an impact on your decision making for where you want to buy a house or where you want to build something. I mean, so there are a lot of variables that go into it, and you can use forward thinking, future oriented thinking, and still use it as a catalyst for rational, progressive, step by step kinds of action plans. Uh, but for sure, anybody that thinks that the climate is not different, I mean,
oh,
it's like, oh my God, it's like so hot now.
and
And
here in Utah as well. It's been hot all summer, like really hot. Yeah. Yeah. So it's definitely a thing, but I think we will adapt and
for
have
sure, because we're adaptable people.
yeah.
And I realize I'm just kind of rambling here, forgive me, but the idea, this apocalyptic, end time kind of thing, I just don't see that. I
I don't
mean, you
know.
know, maybe some town on the coast of Florida washes away, maybe,
Mhm.
but overall, we make adjustments and we find ways to do things. And if maybe that necessitates a step back once in a while, well, that's the way it goes. We still have the potential to find solutions and to get along with each other and find ways that we can interact within a harmonious way rather than this contentious, me versus you. I get every cookie or I'm going to shoot you. I mean, that makes no sense to me.
Well, we've only got a few minutes left because I do have another call after this, but I've been thinking I wanted to talk to Andrew in person for ages, and kind of I hope
Thank you.
the listeners, I hope you're all enjoying it. But where can people find you, Andrew, if they want to see all your very blunt posts?
I think I'm quite tactful. But I mean, probably on Facebook. I mean, that's where I'm also on Medium, but it's Andrew Bassano, it's Andrew Bassano, Brewer, and my website is andrew-brewer.com. Um, but I wanted to talk to you too. I've been a fanboy of yours for a long time, and your book is fantastic, and I appreciate what you do, and I do appreciate from the heart. I appreciate the fact that you put yourself out there too. I recognize the impact it had on your career. I kind of blew up my career. I had just been voted the male light worker of the year and the man of the year and the second the fifth best psychic in the world in 2016, and then Trump shows up. So I blew up a lot of my rich
Yeah.
clients because they were, because of my economic predictions. I gave up. My career kind of tanked a little bit. So I understand that there's a cost, and I do appreciate the fact that you have this very balanced,
Mm.
kind, uh, intelligent energy. So that's important. And again, from the heart, I do appreciate that. And thank you. And so I did want to talk to you. I don't do many of these,
Oh, I
but
know.
once I had a chance to talk to you, I thought, oh, this will be fun.
And
Thank
also,
you.
I think that that more balanced approach wins out in the end. And I think
For sure.
being willing to speak out and challenge bullshit that's out there, I think wins out in the end too. Might not initially, and it did take
In
a
the short term, it
yeah,
wasn't so much fun, but now
yeah.
I have street cred galore. All these things I've been saying that people said, that's impossible, that's impossible, that's impossible. Well, they pretty much all happened, right?
They did.
So all the things that I've said that could never happen, I always love it when something happens, go, no one could have predicted this. And I go, dog, I predicted this
Uh,
5 years ago. So, and I think that's a lesson, kind of a life lesson. When you put yourself out there for what you believe in, then, good things can happen. I think you have to be authentic and true to yourself and take your chances. It's not going to vibe with everyone,
yeah.
but if they don't vibe with you, they're not your tribe anyway. You'll find your people by being your true self, for
Ex
sure.
Well, it's been a real pleasure, Andrew. And
Thank you.
if more big things come up, maybe we'll do this again at some point and look at what's coming up in the
No, it
world.
sounds good. I,
Yeah,
I believe Harris will win.
I do. I think it's
I
going to
believe,
landslide, actually.
I think it'll be way more than it was in 2020. I expect Trump to do way worse. I
Mhm.
also think that Trump will end up in prison. I
Yeah.
do think that. And I think Clarence Thomas is going to have a bad day too, because I think a lot of his actions will come back to haunt him, as it should. So I
What
think that the
what about Alito?
Supreme Court is going to change.
I
I
I
think Alito, I said that I believe that within a year or so, it would be 6-3 kind
mm,
of more Democrats.
yeah.
So, so that would, there have to be some changes. I think Alito is not going to be there that long. I
Yeah.
think
He doesn't.
Thomas will get expelled,
Yeah. Yeah.
which doesn't happen too often, but I do think that.
Mm.
I think he will be investigated. So, in order for that to happen, here's what has to happen first: Harris has to win.
Hmm.
The Democrats have to maintain control of the House and
Hmm.
the Senate, gain control of the House and Senate, and then it's game on. Uh, and when the red wave, remember the red wave was going to happen, I said it would be razor close, and that's what happened. I
Yeah.
think it'll be razor close, but the blue direction, and then things will change.
Well,
That's what I think.
when I say
So
landslide, I mean, at the moment people are expecting still the polls are mostly saying he's going to win. I just no. And so the swing will be I even think maybe Florida and Texas could be in play. We'll see.
I've already said that I think he will lose Florida and North Carolina.
Yeah.
And I think Texas is kind of like rigged a little bit. I know that sounds, but it's be more complicated. But I think Florida is definitely up for grabs.
Mhm.
It would not surprise me he loses Florida. And like when everyone was all excited about DeSantis, that DeSantis would do nothing. There's an it. People get excited by short-term things,
They
but you
do.
have to look at how they relate to the long-term, the pervasive energy. And DeSantis did not match
No,
the kind of the collective energy. He was just a blip on a screen.
and he
He
wore
will fade even more.
those awful white Wellington boots.
Fashion is not his friend.
Anyway,
Um,
I'm gonna have to go, but oh, what a pleasure this is.
thank you so much. Have a magical August, and
Yeah,
it's
you
been a
too.
joy. It's been a joy to meet you. I appreciate it so much. Thank you.